Hey everybody, Michael Coulombe here. I wanted to talk to you today about directing our second film, Stalk. I had so much fun directing Soundbite, and then when we decided to do our next movie, Brantley came up to me and he said, let's just do this movie Stalk. Stalk is just as simple, it can be easily shot, but this time, what was so alluring about the project is it wasn't all inside one house. It also had two actors. Whereas Soundbite had one actress inside of a room, Stalk had two people, and it was all outside. So that was kind of fun. Where also we had to shoot at night because it was outside, so that made it a little interesting. Only because we shot this back in like November, December, and because it launched at the end of December, and it was cold. It was very cold. Not as cold as it has been, but it was cold enough, and we shot outside at night. So there was that. But I wanted to challenge myself to be able to do something that was a little bit more creepy, because here we had this same idea about a woman being followed by somebody, but we had to do something that made it not the same kind of movie. We also had to stick with something that worked with the horror house brand, which is trying to create diversity both behind and in front of the camera, but also work with powerful, I guess I would say tropes or the things that we deal with in sort of our modern society. So I felt like Stalk was a really good sort of follow-up to Soundbite. So one of the other challenges is we didn't have our normal director of photography. Doug Frerick had done Soundbite, and we reached out to him and he was not available. So I hit up my friend Richard Trejo, and I used to do a podcast with him. He's a good friend of mine, and he does sound. I knew he had a camera. I'd worked with him before, so he decided to come and be a part of this project. And I sent him the script, and he loved it. I sent him the script. We talked about it, and the day that we shot, the script kind of opened up with this sort of POV type shot. Now you have to understand that Stalk is sort of Brantley, the writer, it's sort of his ode and homage to Halloween. Halloween is his favorite franchise, which, ironically enough, is also the favorite franchise of Tyler, who is the lead actor, or the male lead. And this was sort of like just a creepy story. It was creepy that it lent itself to where you're coming home late at night and you're being followed by somebody, and you don't know why, and you're trying to escape them. It's that kind of story. But I like that it sort of opened up with this creepy sort of like stalkery POV shot, and that there was this picture of somebody hanging up that we don't know, but we might meet someday, and he kind of just rips it off. So when I sat down with Richard to talk about the opening, I said, what is the best way to make this POV shot? And one thing I love about directing is that, to me, it's a huge collaboration. So it's so nice to be able to take like an idea that I have and present it to the team and be like, how can we make this look good on camera? And Richard's like, hey, I did this movie once. We sort of did this POV type thing. We even added like blinks in it, and this could help it make it feel more real. And we're like, okay, yeah, let's do that. And then so we just sort of designed this shot about walking down the sidewalk and seeing the picture, the missing poster, which, by the way, we used my friend Candace for that. That was nice of her to be able to let us use her image. And we hope to use her in a future episode of a horror house project. So we designed the shot. It was a lot of fun to execute, and then we decided to just make it feel more real, like maybe he was waiting, that we had him smoke a cigarette. So we started with like the hand coming up in the frame, holding a cigarette, and then, which Richard was the one smoking, and we walked along and put the cigarette out, and then Tyler actually had his hand come up and tear down the poster, and then we see our main actress, Kara, who's a good friend of mine, walk off into the distance. So I thought it was kind of a fun opening. And then to make it feel like a little sort of like in-your-face moment, we had Brantley, the writer, and his husband were the couple that were walking up, and it gave us something so that when we bent down to the cigarette, we could come back up to them, and that made it like, oh, this is just a subtle jump scare, not the hugest jump scares, although if done right, I think they're effective. But that at least was something that was kind of fun to put in there. The next thing we did was is when we followed Kara off, I thought it'd be kind of cool to like swipe off into the pole, because one of the things that Richard and I talk about, because here's what I find about directing. There's always the story, which is amazing, and you always get to bring amazing actors. But you also get a chance to use visual storytelling. And one of the things I wanted to talk to about Richard was I wanted to find out ways that we could enter and exit a scene and therefore create transitions. So that's why we went off onto the pole, and then we decided to come off of the tree and see her walking. So it was sort of like a nice visual storytelling point, but it also showed that there was a small passage of time. So that's why we did that. And then to help us come out of the POV and sort of in the transition of the story, we started in the out of focus thing and had her come into it, and then we had her exit, and then Tyler, the actor, stepped into frame, and that's when we first reveal who this guy is, at least in the distance. And then we did that beautiful like wide shot of her just crossing, where the music starts to pick up. Thank you, Richard, for that. And then she sort of exits, and then we just kind of follow along behind her, as she's walking. And then that's when we see footsteps behind her. This knife-wielding maniac is behind her, which was kind of fun to like shoot this on the street. We shot sort of in my neighborhood late at night, and so here we are with a camera and a light, and you have like 6 people, and you have like a man wearing a mask and holding a knife. So thank God we picked a street that was not very popular and least traveled at night, so that helped. But then you get people looking at like, oh, what are you guys doing? And you're like, oh, we're making a student film. But so we did some shots of him of like Kara walking and then Tyler walking, and then we did the scene where he hides behind the wall, and then we have him come out, and we do that sort of like him stepping out and the pan up to reveal that he's holding a mask. And the mask was made by Brantley, and it's sort of a way to hide Tyler's face. Tyler's a good-looking guy, so it's not that. But with the mask on and like the hair hanging down and the hood and stuff, it added a level of creepiness I don't think we were expecting. And then Brantley had this idea right before we went into shooting, which is, wouldn't it be cool if maybe Tyler's character had a limp? And I think the idea is maybe in a future episode we'll find out how he got that limp. So we asked Tyler, hey, would you, want to have a limp? And just for the record, I asked my friend Tyler because I wanted to work with him. He's was an athlete, he was a hockey player, and he's got a great build. So I thought it'd be great to have him play a serial killer because of his build. Plus, we'd been wanting to act, together. We'd been wanting to work together for a while. But it was like the same thing when I had with Taylor, where I wanted her to be in Soundbite. I was like, how do I tell one of my good friends that I want him to act in a movie and not say anything? Oh, and he has to wear a mask. It's like you have actors trained all the time to deliver beautiful lines, and I'm like, hey, I need to hide your face and everything, and you can't act, and you got to still be creepy. And I think he was effective, and I think that the walk helped. It sort of made him human in a sense, but also I don't know. It was very creepy to see him like shuffle behind her. You don't see that very often. So he has like this limp, and it just adds to it, like that slow sort of like walk that you see with like maybe Michael Myers or Jason, but he's actually, stumbling along and limping. So that was kind of a fun thing we threw in there at the last minute. He adapted that very well, and a lot of the people who have seen the movie have sort of commented on that, which was kind of exciting. So we do the reveal, and she exits the frame, and then we come back to the house where we see her enter, and she starts to feel safe, and then lo and behold, she gets attacked from behind and dragged into the bushes. And then this is where you find out that all along she was not human, she was something else, and the tables have turned, and she has attacked him and won. And I liked that about the story because it was nice that we could make something where a woman isn't necessarily a predator. She could, I mean, that a woman isn't necessarily prey. She could be a predator, and it was fun to explore that because that's not an idea that you see or hear very often. I mean, if at all. And so we had her howl, and in post we added sort of a howl, but think it's probably safe to say that she's not specifically a werewolf. We can explore that, but she's definitely something that he was not expecting, and she leaves her prey in the bushes, bleeding to death, and she stands up and she sort of just walks off into the night, you know, holding his mask, and then this wonderful song plays called "Into the Night" by Richard Trejo that I love, and it's sort of like just when you think that her evening is winding down, you know it's just beginning. So Stalk was one of the funnest things I got to direct, um, at least for Horror House. I mean, I love all the projects we've done, but this one was fun because where Soundbite had no words, this one had two. But it was sort of a cat and mouse type thing. It was completely done outside. It had a stunt, which is, I mean, her being pulled into the bushes. Um, and we shot it in my neighborhood and in my, in like my walkway here, my apartment complex. So that made it fun. It was really fun to work with Richard and his team. It was really awesome to work with Kara and Tyler. And this was a great one because this was the first time my nephew got to work on one of my projects. My nephew Majd, um, and so he had a fun time too. He's sort of been a fan of Horror House, and so for him to be on set and see how the process was done, he's been on sets before, but not where I was directing. So that was kind of nice. And then because Brantley and AJ were not able to be there for Soundbite, they got to be on set. So there was like this fun sort of collaboration among everybody. Um, Justin Chamberlain came and he was really good as our gaffer. Um, yeah, this was a lot of fun. And Richard took the piece and took all the footage and edited it. He did all the sound design and composing. He was a rock star on this movie, and I am appreciative of him for that because um, um, Stalk is like it's like a silent sleeper. We launched it during Christmas, and a lot of people wasn't aware that it was out. Um, but it's a good film. It's fun. There's not nothing like it, and that's one of the things I like about it. So yeah, please check out Stalk. It's a Michael Coulombe film written by Brantley J. Brown, um, and produced by Ray McCann, and it was shot by Richard Trejo, and it stars Kara Schaff and Tyler Gallant.